Hi everyone, welcome to Single Value. So today we're looking at Rocket Lab and the stock is flying. Like the stock is up 471% in the last 6 months. Talk about a rocket. Like literally it's a rocket company and its share price is performing like a rocket. Hopefully not the other way around. When it goes up, it also has to come down. I think there's a lot of fuel in this rocket to continue upwards. Obviously, it's gone up a lot already, and its valuation sort of does have to just like stabilize a little bit, because you look at SpaceX, their valuation, they're in talks of insiders selling at a valuation of $255 billion. And then that's slightly less than 20 times its revenue, and for this year's projected revenue anyway. Whereas Rocket Lab is more or less on trend for just over 400 million in revenue. Like even if we were generous and we said they're on track for 500 million revenue, which they're in between. If we go over 500 million and we go 20 times, that's a 10 billion valuation if we use it 20 times. So at 12 billion, they're trading slightly above that 10 billion. Of course, you've got the market that's very forward thinking. They're looking at the bigger rocket Neutron. They're looking at the larger revenues in the future, that this company in the next 2 years is definitely getting within that $1 billion mark for revenue. So the market kind of just keeps going forward looking, because if you could buy something at fair value this good, these very unique and priced companies of high potential, if you could buy them at fair value, then you'd be in a lucky situation. But very often you're not in a situation where you can buy great companies like this at fair value. You could like months ago, but now you're definitely paying a premium. If the share price ever comes back down, then that's fantastic. You can buy at a good price. But if you actually look what's happened in the last few months, not that much entirely. Like the company has been performing like this for the last few years. Its revenues have caught up more, and it's gotten a lot more media exposure. But apart from that, they've always been this really, really great high potential company. It's just the market never realized until now, especially with them on the cusp of launching a bigger rocket that could rival SpaceX. I think when people kind of look at that and go, if you can rival SpaceX, then that's a completely different market, completely different game. And if you can also start doing added services similar to Starlink, then that's a new creation of value that you can unlock and really start to be worth something even more, which is where the company's headed. This is where the potential is, and where the 12 billion valuation today, it's slightly a high premium on the current situation of where they are now. But in the future, this company, 12 billion is going to be cheap in the future. But of course, right now you're paying a premium. Next year, I think this company's easily going to double this valuation, especially if Neutron is a successful launch. I can definitely see this company within 100 billion in the next 2 years if Neutron is a success. That's very contingent, because obviously their revenues will continue to grow, which is this fantastic part about this company. Regardless of that big rocket, they're still going to have a really, really good operation. So recently they've just launched 2 rockets in the space of 24 hours. So they did the first launch, and then 21 hours and 55 minutes later they successfully completed a second launch, because they have two like opened launch pads, and then they've got a third which is for the larger rocket. Imagine that, 2 launches in the space of less than 24 hours. They're also in a really good spot where they secured basically $24 million in incentive awards. They're in a good spot where they're in the spots where they're getting incentives. Their technology is at the front of everything, and they're doing just really, really well. Especially to prove that you can do 2 launches in a space of 24 hours, means, it's just a matter of demand, and over time demand is going to increase and they are going to continue to do well, especially with the launches, and even more so with building more satellites in the future. This company is in a really, really good space. Literally going to space on a rocket, like your share price, everything's going really well. Obviously you want to just watch the stock a little bit carefully at this current valuation. It needs to stable out a bit. If not, it could possibly go higher, but then it starts reaching that very high point of being overvalued. Like right now, I call it a premium, but you could also call it slight overvaluation. But again, it's not far off from 20 times your sales is okay. Like I remember 2 years ago, you'd be like 30 times your sales. Obviously, we're not there yet because interest rates are way too high to kind of merit that, but obviously if interest rates start coming down quite aggressively over the next 2 years, then that 30 times revenue valuation starts to get restored back to the market, especially with Trump in there. That company valuations are going to continue to go upwards. Right now, if you're thinking whether you should buy or sell, it's worth buying if you're in it for the longer term, but I'd leave some money on the side to buy at a cheaper price. Though it is an okay price now. Even though it's risen up so much, the potential of it going even further up next year is hard one to miss. You don't want to really miss not getting on the rocket, but it's gone up so much already. But this is one of the very few stocks that actually has a really, really good founder, really good management team, really good technology. It's at the forefront of everything, and it's hard to find these companies. It's not often you're going to find these companies, and they'll continue to perform. That's why you let your winners ride sometimes, because even though the stock's gone up close to 500%, it's still got so much potential ahead of it. And basically this current rise only makes up for the last few years where it hasn't been rising. Any stock that stagnates that much but continues to regress so much over time, eventually the stock does catch up. But of course, anyone that was holding in the previous years would have just been through agony, wondering why the share price isn't rising. And then now you see why. The stock, these stocks require market attention. The minute the market watches everything and goes, yeah, the stock's rising now, then everyone starts to hop on a bandwagon, and nothing's ever the same again. I can guarantee you, anything that happens to Rocket Lab now, it's very, very price sensitive. The stock will move with any little bit of information that comes to the market, not like previously. Previously, there was a very small segment of the market that knew about the stock. Now, it's a good chance that the whole market knows about the stock, which is a very, very different perspective. So I think, if you're not willing to hold for the long run, you either reduce or you sell, because it is a really good valuation right now. If you're in it for the long run, then of course, as they get closer to that Neutron launch, things are just going to continue to go upwards, and the company is in good space. But of course, in saying that, if they reach a delay, if they say, Neutron's been delayed for another 6 months and it won't launch to 2026, then the market's not going to be very happy. The stock might take a little plunge. But of course, they've still got a really good business. And in terms of valuation, just on existing guidance of say 450 million for the revenue, that's not bad. We're getting $19 billion in terms of valuation. So all of a sudden, even on the current financials, they're not that overvalued by that much. And the minute Neutron is successful, and it does go commercial, then the valuation really skyrockets. Like, we're talking 100 billion on the success of Neutron, because then this company starts looking into the billions in terms of revenue, which is, pretty unimaginable at this stage, but it's very, very real. And things only get better for the company over the next few years. So hence why, if you're thinking if this is still a good company to buy into, it definitely is. It's not stopping. It's not even at the peak of, space isn't even at its peak. It's still at the beginning, even though you have SpaceX being at forefront of everything. And you go, these companies have barely even utilized space to really, really gain an advantage. It's like the early days of the internet. We've sort of been through that stage. Early days of internet in the 2000s. I think that was quite a few years ago, where we saw this in a sort of trend in for space stocks, especially with Virgin Galactic. I definitely remember those days, where Virgin Galactic just skyrocketed multiple folds. Obviously it's not being as relevant these days. But now we're years later, and you can start to see the usefulness of space, the usefulness of rockets, the usefulness of what satellites can really do. And I think in the next 10 years you see that even more further, because you see currently SpaceX, they're locking in a lot of deals to do cell phone data. Go anywhere you want, you still have access, and that's only the beginning, right? So in the future, we're all going to have access to data just through satellite. So no matter where you go, you're going to have access, and it's going to be cheap data. The minute the data to access through a satellite is very cheap, that's when things are normal. But that's probably 10 years later. Right now, we're still so early that these companies are still in the infancy, and they have so much more valuation to gain, so much more value to prove, that it's still really early days. And even though it's risen up so much, I wouldn't be too worried in terms of its valuation. It's just catching up with misvaluation. The market definitely didn't see the value in this company, not because it wasn't there, but more or less just oversight. And it was more just waiting for it to be recognised in its revenue, to wait for stability. And I think now you've got stability in the company, and it's got the potential, particularly in the Neutron rocket. So yeah, those are my thoughts around this company. I think it's definitely on a really good path, and it's something you don't want to miss out on. It is literally the next Tesla. If you missed out on Tesla stock, you would have been just kicking yourself. And you would have just watched it continue to go higher and higher and higher, and you would have just thought it was crazy, especially the valuations. I remember seeing those charts on the Tesla stocks, and they're literally the stock is all the car companies combined, and that was crazy. But you kind of get a glimpse. It's all about that potential. It's about unlocking further value. You can't compare Rocket Lab with another rocket company that only specializes in launch or just does manufacturing. Literally, the only companies like Rocket Lab and SpaceX are countries. Literally, no other company is comparable, because no other company has the launch capabilities that SpaceX and Rocket Lab has. No other company has those manufacturing capabilities as extensive as Rocket Lab and SpaceX. And no other company in the future is going to also have the capabilities in terms of data. So finding these three combinations is pretty special. Obviously SpaceX is already in the data kind of game, and Rocket Lab has aspirations to get in there next year, and it's not there. But the minute it is there, it starts unlocking even more value. So that's why you want to keep an eye on these stocks, because literally these companies don't come out often. You're not going to find many of these companies, and they're at the start of things. So the minute things continue to grow, like we're talking like this is a very cheap valuation in the space. In 5 years, 10 years time, you look at the stock and you go, why didn't I buy it earlier? And so I wouldn't get caught up in how much it's risen. If you're in it, like this will be one of the best stocks to make a gain for next year. Like this year's pretty much over, but at any stage as right now, like the stock is worth buying. Like this stock is it's got, you know, it's going to be worth hundreds per share, like in the next 2 years for sure. Like there's no kidding, there's no playing around with it. This is a valuable stock. I don't know how much more I can repeat myself, and I don't think it's worth repeating myself that much, but I think it's a really good stock. So yeah, good luck investing, everyone. Like, if you've got any questions or comments, post below. Until next time, well, yeah, see you next